So we moved, I'm a lifelong knitter. My mom and my grandmother were knitters, so I came by it honestly. And my background is healthcare administration, and I worked in as a non-clinical director in a hospital up in Maine. And 6 years ago, my husband had an opportunity. He's a physician to come down to this location, Elizabeth City, North Carolina, to sort of restart their surgery program. So we decided to pick up and move down here because I wasn't really interested in retiring where it was going to be freezing cold all the time. So we came down to North Carolina, and it didn't look like the same kind of opportunity was going to be available for me here. And getting my MBA had always been sort of a big item on my bucket list. So after all of my kids went through college and graduate school, and this was sort of the perfect opportunity to do that. So I went back to school, got my MBA. And at the end of that, thought, sort of the world is my oyster. And as I always tell my kids, there's no dress rehearsals, right? If you want to do something, it's time to do it right now. So I thought about the things I love to do. And I thought about how much I loved knitting and fiber and yarn. And so I armed with what I'd learned in my MBA program, I did a pretty detailed business plan, realized, well, I'd known for 5 years that there was no yarn shop here. But, I did a larger marketing and business plan on, how far away would you actually have to go to a really nice yarn shop? And at the time, the answer was probably about 45 miles. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to open a yarn shop. And I did. So the thing that really helped me is one of my very, very good friends from high school in central Pennsylvania had been running a yarn and fabric shop for about 18 years. And so she was one of the first people I reached out to and said, how does this really work? And so I actually, February of 2020, went up to central Pennsylvania and spent a few days with her, kind of learning the backroom operations and how a lot of this works. And armed with that, I decided I was going to do this. The key being February of 2020. Remember back then when everything was carefree and COVID free. So I got everything together. I had my startup money. I started ordering yarn, met my two primary yarn detail people, sat down. Actually, the very first one was Karen. And so I sat down with Karen, and she was super helpful in terms of, how these are things that work. Cynthia had given me some ideas, my friend up in Pennsylvania at Stitch Your Art Out. And between she and Karen, I really got a lot of sort of the kickoff information. So I ordered a lot of yarn, and then COVID happened. So all of a sudden I had this beautiful space and honestly, the most wonderful landlord in the world. I love them. And all this yarn coming, and then things started shutting down. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to keep moving forward because there's really no such thing as moving backwards. So the thing that really saved me was sort of my inexperience. So my friend Cynthia uses RAIN point of sale system, and they were great. I kind of thought that, and so with that system, you have your inventory and your point of sale all wrapped together. And so my website is integrated into that. So everything that's in my shop is on my website, thanks to them.
That's awesome.
So yeah, they're wonderful and I love them. So I don't know who I thought was going to enter in every single skein of yarn. Turns out it's me, because my only other staff member, Beatrice, and her friend Claire on the other side of the room weren't really good at that. They have no arms and no heads. So I have no employees. So what happened was North Carolina shut down, like a lot of places. Anything that was non-essential, and we could argue all day long about how essential yarn is, but North Carolina felt it was non-essential. So the state of North Carolina didn't open up until May 1st. But honestly, it kind of took from the end of March to almost May 1st to really get everything going. My husband came in weekends and we set up the IKEA shelving. And I mean, they're just, when you start from scratch, it's hard to imagine just how far you have to come. And so, like, initially I was like, yeah, I'm going to open April 1st. That was never going to happen.
Right.
So in a way, COVID kind of helped me, because that was insane to think that. But I was here all the time working all of this stuff. And honestly, by the time North Carolina opened May 1st, I was ready to go. The thing that really helped me was, in my mind's eye, I've been a lot of yarn shops in my life, a lot of them. And when we were up in Maine, I probably had 4 or 5 of them that I frequented regularly. But very few of them had a dedicated area where people could come and just not necessarily shop if they didn't want to, but they could bring their projects, they could get help, they could just come and knit. So I had set up a beautiful spot in the front of my shop. I have these big windows, lots of sunshine coming in.
Yeah, your shop is so pretty.
Yeah, thanks. And then this big work table. And so I had these 2 places. So as people started filtering in, I'd invite them to stay, bring their project back. And because of COVID and because the state had been shut down, people were desperately lonely. People had been isolated at home. Honestly, a lot of my customers are, retired, and they needed to get away from their little retired husbands. They were driving each other crazy. And so this became a little refuge. And it's funny because people kind of came in from all these different places. And our town is about 18 or 20,000 people, but we have a lot of other small rural communities around us. So people started filtering in, and they would come and stay. They'd bring their project, they'd bring a little lunch, because I have a cute little kitchen here, refrigerator. And all of a sudden, this community sort of coalesced. It was kind of magical. And it was really a product of people being isolated and needing someplace to go, needing someplace to belong, someplace to escape, really. And, what better place than a room with a turquoise floor and walls full of beautiful yarn. So, this community built, and it wasn't just, a group of a clique of people who'd always done everything together. It's actually the opposite of that. I've got, like I said, these people coming in from all over the place, and this community has coalesced out of a bunch of people who might not have ever even met each other. And yet they come here, they have a common love of knitting and crocheting and fibers. And the amazing thing that's happened is that I have regulars who come 3 or 4 times a week.
That's awesome.
And, as they come in, and they come in at different times of the day, and different ones of them kind of group up. And I have to say that my customers are verging on aggressively friendly. When new people come in, I mean, you go to a new place and you see a bunch of people working and you feel like they've all camped out. But my folks are not like that at all. They jump up, they're like, come join us. Let me show you what I'm knitting. Did you see my last project? And so people, we have this constant inflow of people who are like, yeah, I would love to be a part of that community. And it's very, very welcoming. And that's honestly the magic behind this shop. And it's what keeps me coming here filled with joy every single day, because I know my people are coming in, and I know they've got something to share. They may have a question. They help each other. Down at the end of my street is this donut shop, and the owner of the donut shop was actually really helpful when I was looking for phone systems and internet early on. And he's got a 12-year-old daughter who now comes to my shop regularly. Aww. And she has gone from just learning to knit to she's working on her second sock.
That's awesome.
Awesome. So, and I've got young moms whose husbands are in the Coast Guard. We have a big Coast Guard base here. And so it's, it's multi-generational, which is wonderful, because my retired ladies love Kenzie, my 12-year-old, who's being a knockout knitter. And, my young Coast Guard wives who miss their families can come in here. And we've got a bunch of ladies that could be their moms. And it's such an incredible environment. I absolutely love it. So that's an interesting question for me in particular as well. So I moved here to coastal North Carolina from Maine. And what we use in Maine, because our climate is so different, is very different than what sells here. And so early on, I kind of heavy loaded with a lot of worsted weight yarn, a lot of wool, a lot of the things that I knew best when I was up there. That's what I could buy. That's what you would use. That's what worked best, and so forth. Once I got going, and I also really love felting. So I stock some bulky weight yarns that are 100% wool, not superwash, so that we can felt things. And it's interesting. It's only taken until now that I've gotten a bunch of people. Again, I had a couple of things sample knitted, but it took a couple of them to say, oh, look at this cute tote that I felted, and then all of a sudden 5 people wanted to felt things. Finally, after 2 years. So I really had, once I got down here and my customers started filtering through, and I was watching and listening and watching what was moving. And Karen was helpful with that too. Although, and Cynthia was only a little bit helpful with that, because you wouldn't think that Pennsylvania, which is kind of halfway in between Maine and here, would be that different. And yet what sells at her shop is very different than what sells at my shop, even though we're only probably 300 miles apart. So I have had to kind of rethink what I know is going to move here. So I have transitioned from, I still have worsted weight yarns, but I've really pushed much more into DK weight. And that DK seems to still be a big enough yarn and big enough needle so people are getting through their projects in a timely fashion. But as opposed to fingering or sport, and they do a little bit of that, but DK seems to be the sweet spot now. So I'm kind of moving a little bit away from my worsted as much and bringing in a lot more lines of DK weight yarn, which actually kind of brings me to probably your next question, which is what yarns do I love and really move here? And I'll tell you one, speaking of DK, one of the all-time favorite yarns here, honestly, is Wool Pop.
That's
we
awesome.
love it here. We love it. It knits up beautifully. It's got a beautiful drape. It's warm, but it's not hot. It's got just that beautiful little sheen where the wool hits the bamboo. And it's a big seller for me. It comes in a lot of beautiful colors. And I use it a lot to knit, and my customers use it a lot to knit as well. It's a favorite. I also sell some bamboo pop, and that seems to be that bamboo and cotton blend seems to be a little bit more of a niche yarn for some reason here, but
interesting.
Not as much as Wool Pop, but it moves and I have to keep it in stock. And then of course, who doesn't love bamboo pop sock? I have one of my customers knit up a pair to have on display. And honestly, as I'm moving people through the sock yarn section of my shop, I always just say, just feel this. And people are always like, oh my gosh. Because again, if you think about it, I'm in a warmer climate. And frankly, when I first opened, I had very little sock yarn because honestly, people around here wear flip-flops 11 months out of the year. It's the strangest thing, but they do. And so I thought, they're never going to wear socks. And I love knitted socks. I think they're beautiful. But there's also, socks are kind of a lot of knitters' hill to climb, their marathon to run. And so I had a bunch of wool socks on display that I'd done, over the years, put those out. And over time, that demand has increased, and people, especially with bamboo pop sock, people love that sock yarn so much. So I keep that in stock all the time and especially those kind of fun, bright coastal colors, those sell for me every day of the week. So
That's
I thought
awesome.
people were going to use that more for at least some, because a lot of the other sock yarns people use for wraps and shawls and scarves and things, but bamboo pop sock. People love it for socks so much that that's what they use it for.
That's great.
So yeah, those have been really popular. You know, it's interesting. When I was in Maine, it was all hats, mittens, sweaters, scarves. And you know, I don't think I actually ever knitted an asymmetric wrap or a shawl until I came down here. Those are very big down here. I think partially because the air conditioning is such a rude shock when you go into a restaurant in the evening or even the grocery store. And I can remember the first year we moved down here, I was talking to a friend of mine who's originally from Richmond, and I said, Anne, oh my gosh, what is with these restaurants and grocery stores? And she said in her soft Southern accent, you know, you've just got to learn to take a sweater with you. And so it kind of clicked, like, that's why people are doing this. So people in my shop do a lot of the asymmetric, you know, sort of scarf wrap things. In the wintertime, they love shawls. So we've got a lot of those worked up, but in reality, there's kind of only so many of those that each one person needs. And so what we've kind of done, and by we, I don't mean Beatrice here because she's not super helpful, but you know, we've kind of experimented with different things. You know, one of the things about having regular customers is that they become sort of integral to the shop, and I'm able to kind of encourage them to try new things. You know, if all you're doing is knitting, why don't you try cabling? You can do it. I'm here. You can bring it in every single day if you need to. And so one of the exciting things has been to see people try things that they wouldn't otherwise do. And they feel like they can because they have help. They have help all the time here. And they can come in at any point and say, this doesn't look right. Am I doing this right? I don't feel confident in this. And so it encourages them to try increasingly challenging projects. So we've gone from sort of just wraps and shawls to, you know, our big thing right now is yoke sweaters. People are loving them. I love them personally. And so, you know, I work up ones for me and then I put them in the shop. And so I'm watching these knitters who 2 years ago would never have tried this are like, yeah, with your help, I'm going to try a yoke sweater. I'm going to try, you know, a cardigan, or I'm going to. And so for, you know, that's the other thing that honestly gets me out of bed in the morning. I love to watch my customers bloom as knitters and take on increasingly challenging projects. Maybe try a color that's outside their usual, you know, palette that they generally wear. You know, they see it on someone else. We have a mirror here. And I encourage them, take a couple of skeins of yarn, go back at the mirror and play with these different colors. So that's been kind of fun too. So we do a lot of garments. I mean, now we also, and I'll talk about this in a minute, we also do charitable knitting. And so with that, I mean, we participate, we're a drop off for Project Linus, which is the blankets for children. We participate in, there's a couple of church groups who knit here that have prayer shawl ministries. Those are a big thing. And frankly, we've had a couple of people in my coastal Purl community that are facing life-threatening illnesses. And we had one about 2 months ago. One of my regular knitters' daughter was facing a big operation and some serious health issues. And so everybody did a couple of squares from their stash. And we had some parameters. It had to be super washed and the square had to be, I think, 7 inches square. And so all of these people in my shop went into their stash, found yarn that fit that parameter. And we did this beautiful patchwork throw with a note that, you know, talked about, you know, each of the knitters signed the note for her. And you know, that's so powerful for people. And now, you know, I was notified this morning that unfortunately we've got another of those that we need to work on because someone else has just been diagnosed. So we do that. We also are very active in the Knitted Knockers program.
Awesome.
And that's for people who are facing, who have had a mastectomy, and they're these soft little inserts that are, and actually Bamboo Pop is one of the approved yarns for that. So yeah, and interestingly, one of my customers who lives out in the Raleigh area, which is about 2.5, 3 hours from here, in spite of all of the yarn shops that are in Raleigh, my yarn shop is her yarn shop. And so she has a vacation house in Edenton, about 30 miles south of here. And so she comes up monthly. And when her church convention was doing, wanted to do a big project for their women parishioners, they chose the Knitted Knockers and bought their Bamboo Pop from my shop. So get a whole bunch of colors of that got used for that project, and they produced a lot of knockers, which was wonderful. So I think Knockers, Project Linus, the Prayer Shawl Ministries, and we have ladies that do the little octopuses for NICU babies and the little hats. So that brings me back to my mannequin here, Beatrice. So we are next month participating in Brahaha, which is another program that highlights breast cancer awareness and is a fundraiser for women who maybe not be able to afford a mammogram. So with this program, companies, organizations can decorate a bra. It has to be a 38C, and you can decorate it any way you want. And this is happening actually also on September 17th, the day. So my customers are going, I won't even be in town. So we've done this bra, very proud of her. And it shows, it's all knitted. You have to cover every bit of it. And it shows the different projects that we're involved in. Here is the baby hat for the NICU, and a little knitted sweater, coastal Purl, little socks. This is one of the Knitted Knockers, the daffodil for Hope for the American Cancer Society. So, and the Project Linus blanket and Prayer Shawl Ministry. So it's a competition and we never shy away from a competition. So yes, she's getting ready to go to the show. So it's really nice. I mean, in addition to having this wonderful community of people who just love to get together and are so wonderful and joyful and giving, we also are very much involved in this larger community of projects that really benefits our community a lot. So yeah. And
That's
then
amazing.
in terms of other kinds of things that we're involved in, we're in coastal North Carolina. We're kind of the inner banks. There's the outer banks, we're the inner banks. So a lot of the rivers converge here, and we've got waterfront everywhere. So of course we've done the international knit outside. We went out to the riverfront. Everybody brought their camp chairs. We had a big group of knitters who, I think that was in April or May. So we all went out to the waterfront, brought snacks and things to drink, and sat out for a couple of hours and knitted. That was awesome. And that kind of inspired Knit Night Out at our local brewery. And the co-owner, Tabitha, is one of my regular knitters. And so for 3 Thursdays in the summer, and probably we'll extend it into September and October because it's so mild here, we had Knit Night Out at the brewery. And that was great fun. Of course, we participate in local yarn shop day, and then this Brahaha business. And then locally, Elizabeth City Tourism is sponsoring a hot chocolate crawl. So it's really designed to entice people to come to our different establishments downtown to try different kinds of hot chocolate. But I really wanted to participate. So what we're doing is we mocked up this cute little mug hug. And that is going to be, we're going to put it into a little kit. And so you'll get 2 little buttons and the pattern and this sweet little cabled mug hug in a little kit to knit. So that's our contribution to the hot chocolate crawl. So yeah, I mean, it's fun to do those things, and it further, gives people things to do, people things to think about, and things to kind of be a part of our larger community.
I love to hear that you have such a close-knit community.
Mhm.
It's like more than a yarn shop. You have
You
people
know,
that really care about each other.
it 100% is. And, it's interesting that you should say that because, given the predominant demographic, I have had a couple of customers lose spouses over the 2 years that I've been open. And it is amazing to watch our little community close in around and hug that person psychologically. And a couple of those people, you could see that knitting truly, one of them's husband had been sick for a long time, and sort of through that transition into hospice, I think if she were here, she would tell you that knitting got her through that. That being able to sit down and be mindful and create something, have something to keep your hands busy and engage your mind in that process, and a place to come for a respite afterwards. It's been truly remarkable and very special to watch that happen, and something very unexpected, because you wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't have necessarily expected that when I got ready to open my shop. But it's, again, kind of an extension of being part of a community, and it's just absolutely wonderful.
Well, it speaks to the owner when you can have a shop like that. So,
well, thank you. I have to tell you, though, in terms of sort of extraordinary outreaches, so when I was getting ready to open and I had these boxes, huge boxes coming in, and it was overwhelming, and we were in the middle of this early surge in COVID, and I was, I'd come in here and the walls were still empty, and I'd have these things coming in and the shelves were half built, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, what in the world have I done? What have I done? What was I thinking? And one day a big box came, and it was my box from Universal. And I opened it up, and on the top of the box was a box of Girl Scout cookies, and I cried my eyes out. And I have no idea, maybe it was Bianca, I don't know, whoever packed the box, I don't know if they will ever fully understand how huge that was. It was
I will
amazing.
pass that along, because it's an effort that we do with the whole team. Yancha's done it for a while, but our warehouse team is who packs all the orders.
Really?
Yeah, so we have gosh, I don't know how many people they have exactly at the moment. We've hired some new people recently, but there's a whole team of people who just pick and pack the orders for you guys. And then we have like a packing and shipping team, which are two ladies, Myra and Donna. And so they're the ones that actually pack your orders and ship them out for you.
Well, it was, of all, I don't know how they knew, how they could possibly have known what an impact that would have, but it was just so huge and so profound. And to think, this is not, and certainly subsequently, because of your amazing customer service, looking back, of course you will do this. But at the time I had no idea. I mean, I was ordering yarn from, a couple of big companies, and to open that first box up and see the humanity in it was just, I think there were like little candy sprinkled in. I was just like, who is this? This is so wonderful. And I think especially, I mean, it was amplified by COVID and sort of the, as I was thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done in the world? It kind of made me feel like, wow, there's somebody else out there that is going to be available to help me. And certainly Christy and Kristen have been absolutely wonderful. And it's so funny because when I call and I say, hi, this is Katherine from Coastal Purl, they're always like, oh, how are you? And it's funny, I had built up in my mind that I was your only customer, which I know is completely insane. But last summer, we went out to Washington State, to Puget Sound, to visit friends of ours. And so I stopped in, there were 2 yarn shops in Port Townsend. And in one of them, I stopped in and I said, oh my gosh, this is Universal Yarn. You guys get Universal Yarn. And she said, oh yeah, I love Christy and Kristen. And I was like, wait a minute, you're my customer service people. And I said, aren't you just amazed at how they seem to know all of us? And she said, yeah, it's really incredible. And for them, I mean, one of the things I think about is I have a distinct advantage in that Charlotte is close to me. And so shipping is more reasonable. And, there are yarn companies that I think very highly of that are out on the West Coast that I really don't order a lot of yarn from because frankly, the shipping is too much. It's just, and it's not their fault. It's a fact of life. So the fact that, she was like, no, I love Universal Yarn. And I was thinking, wow, you've got to pay the extra shipping to get it there. But yes, so do I. So anyway, that's just kind of a fun thing because it was so funny to meet somebody else. And, we were both like, really? You feel like you're their only customer? I thought I was their only customer. So hats off to the folks that answer the phone because that's huge. It's huge. It's wonderful when they have at their fingertips, this is in stock, or I know when, this is back ordered, but this is when I think we're coming. I mean, those little things really help so much when you're on the front line here and you've got somebody that maybe wants something or needs it for a project. And, when it's Universal Yarn, I feel knowledgeable when I call them back to say, this is the update, and I'm pretty confident in it. So. I've got a number of other people who come in, like I said, 3, 4, 5 times a week and bring their projects, show me what they're doing, help each other, encourage new knitters that are coming in. And so, it kind of, and lately they've been bringing their lunch. So, they come in, they settle in, they stay for a couple of hours. Then I've got my afternoon crowd that comes in after they sign off from work. And so they come in kind of later in the afternoon, kind of in the 5 o'clock time frame. And so that's kind of the rhythm of the day. And I've got regulars that I can pretty much count on that are going to come in, and then people sprinkle in from other places. And then I do have, it's interesting because of social media, I do have some online customers that are now part of our community as well. I've got some friends up in Maine that are part of the community. I've got a friend in New York State who is very much a part of my community. They participate in Finish It Fridays. And they, because I'm so small, I'm able to really offer sort of a concierge yarn selection opportunity. So people that reach out to me from distant places, I'm able to text pictures and combinations of yarns that, frankly, Amazon can't do that. And probably bigger yarn shops can't do that or wouldn't do that either. But that's the beauty of being a really small yarn shop is you get to talk to the owner, and yeah, I'll text you as many pictures as it takes to put your project together.
Amazing. I love that you have a dog in the shop as well.
It's so funny because I think a lot of people here would be otherwise intimidated. And my intent was once he got to the point that I could leave him at home, that I would leave him at home. And I tried to do that. And there was such outrage here. And he's a big dog, but honestly, big dogs spend a lot of the day sleeping. So he comes up and he curls up at people's feet and just kind of, because he's been coming since he was a baby, he knows what the rhythm of the day is. And he knows that at 11 o'clock, we come over, he settles in with his 2 toys. And as ladies come in, he goes and greets each one of them and then he curls up. His latest naughty little trick is, if he really wants to know what's in their knitting bag, he'll walk over and drop his tennis ball into it and then pretend he's trying to find his tennis ball while he's scoping for snacks, because a bunch of my ladies used to carry little snacks in their knitting bags, and now they know to put them in the kitchen because Yona has found them. But anyway, he's become kind of a part of the fabric here. People enjoy him, and even people who otherwise probably would have been unsure of kind of a big dog. They've known him since he was just a tiny little ball of fur. So he's kind of grown up here, and they have grown appreciating him. So we'll see. As long as he behaves, he gets to stay. If he gets to be naughty, he has to go home. Elizabeth City it's a wonderful little place. When we came down to interview, I'd never been here before. I'd been to the Outer Banks, but I'd never been here before. And I'm a Northerner, born and bred, and so this was a big cultural shift for us to move down here. But I can honestly say that there is something 100% true about Southern hospitality. And we have been so kindly welcomed here and met the most wonderful, generous people in this community. And this is, Northeast North Carolina is, it's largely rural. We don't have, farming is a big industry here. So this is not a place with a lot of wealth. But it more than makes up for it in kindness and generosity. The people here are they're just wonderful. And from the beginning, we have been so welcomed here. So we really love our adopted home. And so now our Elizabeth City Tourism is doing a great job. This is kind of one of those undiscovered wonderful places because we have water everywhere, and we're 45, 50 miles from the Outer Banks. So it's an easy commute. Those of us that are here know to go there in the off season. Right now it's pretty busy. But this is a place where there's a lot of waterfront access. We've got all of these beautiful rivers coming into the Albemarle Sound. And so, water and boating is just a big part of the community. But because it's been largely rural and not affluent, it's been kind of undiscovered. But when people come here, real estate is reasonable. There are lots of fresh fruits and vegetables and farm stands and farm fields around us. Actually, one of my favorite things to do is when the cotton is blooming is to take my cotton yarns out to the cotton fields because it's just so cool. It's cool that cotton grows here. So, as more and more people come to this area, they are just astounded at how wonderful it is and what the resources are. And it is a sweet community. It really is. We love it.